So now I'm going to show a game that was played in Simmering in 1926. White was Kmok against Alekhine, the ex-world champion. Kmok, he played d2 to d4, which Alekhine answered with f5. Now we have the Dutch defense, and it have, of course, a lot in common with one f2 to f4, which is known as the bird opening. Now, after queen d3, the idea is, of course, that the queen is attacking the pawn on f5 so that black has to defend the pawn. And if black plays e6 or, for example, g6 to defend the pawn, then the idea is to play e4 with white with a fine game. So in this position here, Alekhine chooses to go into a Stonewall. This Stonewall is with the queen on d3, and the queen on d3 is not especially well placed here. But white will have a good control over the square e6. But it's really seldom that you see a Stonewall losing just because of the weak square e5. So now they just develop normally, and I think white would prefer his queen not to be on d3 here. But what is a little bit unusual here is that white has not played c4, so that black has the opportunity to play c5 and get this active Stonewall, winning space. Space is always very important in the Stonewall. So now Alekhine fights back about the control on e5. And after knight d to f3, he has this fine move, knight d7, and black gained the control over e5. Take, 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 and black has secured the e5 square. Now after castling, he takes over the control of more space. And space advantage is of course a permanent advantage. Time is something that can disappear and will disappear if you don't use it right now. But space advantage is something that you don't have to use right now. You can just keep it. After knight e1, Alekhine played this fine move g5, winning more space also on the king side. So we have now a doubled Stonewall, and Alekhine takes space on both wings. This is how you should play the doubled Stonewall if you can. After b3 and rook f to b8, knight c2 and a5 with the pawn, then white made a serious mistake. I think white should play rook f1 to b1, for example, and then double the rooks with rook b1 to b2 and rook a1 to b1 before he opens up the queen side. But he opened up the queen side right away. It's too early. And after rook f1 to b1, then he could put his knight to a7 with opportunities of to use the square b5. Queen e1 and then bishop a4. You see, this is a bad bishop because all the pawns are on the same color as this bishop on a4. But it's an active bishop because now this bishop is used actively on a4. And the bishop is actually not worse than the white bishop because the white bishop has no squares to go to because of the black pawns are controlling its squares. After bishop d1, then queen to e7. And now he plays knight b5, and then he doubles the rooks behind the back of the knight. That's a clever maneuver. Bishop e2 and h5. And here he is really in great trouble. So he tries to do an Esperado saving, but he doesn't save this position. After knight d6, he's just lost. because now black is actually threatening queen b2. So white has to play queen c1, and then he has won a pawn. And after knight e3, he also won the pawn on g3. And then came king f2, knight e4 check, and Kmoch gave up. I think this game illustrates quite well how to play the doubled Stonewall. If you can, then take the advantage on both wings, the space advantage.